Hi, it's Katie Jarvis with Managing the Mess. This video is all about how not to end up like this at the end of the school day. This job is not easy. It is always changing. It is always going to be challenging. So you need to have strategies in place so that you can survive as an art teacher and even get to the point where you can thrive. Keep in mind, it's not easy to be a teacher these days. It's also not easy to be a student. Have a lot of grace with your students. It's hard to be a kid. It is definitely a time when students don't have the highest self-esteem, and you see that play out in your classroom. And a lot of students do not have the greatest home life. So what they bring to school is often not their best because they're being really let down by their home life. From time to time, I'll hear an art teacher say, or I'll read a post where someone's like, oh, I'm just not that really good at classroom management. And this always just blows my mind because I don't even know how this is an option. If you are an elementary art teacher, classroom management is your life. Everything that you do has got to be working towards that goal of getting better at classroom management because it's going to make your job that much easier. And it's not something that you really just ever get perfect at. Kids are always changing. What's getting thrown at you from your school and different challenges are coming up are always continually changing. So you need to be someone that is striving to learn what are those techniques out that are working for other teachers with classroom management. Connect and meet with other teachers online. That's a great resource that you have, especially if you're an art teacher that's isolated and alone. Definitely subscribe to YouTube channels like Managing the Mess that talk about classroom management. You've got to get yourself to the point where you are trying things and you're feeling good. You're able to toss things that don't work without getting your feelings hurt. I highly recommend looking into Michael Linson. He is an author that at one time was a PE teacher, and he has a book that is all about classroom management for art, music, and PE teachers. That's a really good place to start. And it's something that I reread and revisit every summer and just kind of rethink, how could I do things better? Another thing I do each year with classroom management is I do a little bit of a backwards design. How I design my lesson for the very first day of school and teach those rules is based on what did I see that previous school year. I will literally just sit down with each of my classroom rules and I will write down what are the things I saw in the last year where people were breaking these rules. And then that first week of school, that's what I'm teaching. I'm teaching right to what were those behaviors that I saw before, the things that were driving me crazy. What can I do in this next school year to have that fresh start? Now, we are totally lucky as teachers that we get that. So a lot of times when you're feeling low, you've got that, I can make it to the break, I can hang on till summer, but you really do get a fresh start every school year, and make sure that you recharge yourself over the summer and take advantage of improving your classroom management and learning things over the summer so you can implement that when you go into a new school year. To be the very best art teacher that you can be and avoid the burnout, you really need to take care of yourself. And I know you've heard this before, but you definitely need to think about what you're eating and drinking and seeing if that is fueling you in the right way. I chuckle at this because I think my first 10 years, at least, of teaching was fueled completely on Dr. Pepper. But I've, over the time, learned how to make this work for me and how to eat and drink so that I am having more energy when I'm at school. You don't want that crash from eating junk for breakfast. You don't want to not have time to eat lunch. I have definitely been there. You deserve a lunch break. Something that I have done, because I do like to use some of my lunchtime to prep and prepare. And I think, if you have the ability to take, your full half hour for lunch, that's great. But as a working mom, I've always really felt like I would like to use, 5-10 minutes to eat my lunch and then the rest of the time to prep and prepare so that I'm spending less time after school. So think about what you're packing. If you know you can't sit there and eat 10 different lunch items, pack a really dense, healthy lunch. Maybe you have a sandwich that has bacon and avocado on it or something, so that you are fueled properly for the afternoon is gonna make a really big difference. Make sure that you are sleeping and taking care of yourself. You can track this on your Apple Watch in different ways to see if you're meeting those sleep goals, but don't ignore it or think that it's something that's not important. It really does wear on you over time, and you need this to be the best calm patient teacher that you can be. My best tip for this would be that I love to get ready for bed as soon as possible. So in the winter, sometimes this means I go home and I put my pajamas right on, I wash off my makeup, put my hair up, and I just get cozy and comfy. I'll even, right as soon as dinner is over, brush my teeth so that as it gets later and later, I'm able to just fall into bed. I don't have to also convince myself to get off the couch and then get, pajamas on and get ready for bed. Those things are already taken care of. So it's just a little tip to help you get into bed a little sooner, is just get ready for it as soon as possible. You can totally eat dinner in your pajamas. It's wonderful. Make sure that you are, throughout the school year, taking breaks from school. If you're doing school all day and you're doing school, when you get home, sitting on the couch, this is really going to take a toll on you. So periodically take breaks. I know as a teacher, your entire life really revolves around the school year, and a lot of your life is caught up in being a teacher. It's just the type of career that it is. It kind of just sucks you in. But where are you going to take those breaks? When are you going to make time to get outside, to do things that you love that have nothing to do with being a teacher? Make sure you're really giving yourself a break too. You don't have to always do projects that look amazing and end up on Instagram. There are no imperfect teachers on Instagram, if you haven't noticed. There's no teachers on Instagram that are even having a bad day or slightly grumpy. There's only, really cutely dressed, really happy teachers that are showing their absolute highlight reel to you. And trust me, it doesn't need to be like that. I've recently walked around and thought, oh my gosh, this project is terrible. These paintings just look totally ugly. But you know what? My students were all behaved. They were all having fun. They were all engaged. And I let it go. It doesn't always have to be something that is amazing. If you were doing your job, sometimes that is okay. And plan for this. Plan for those highs and lows of energy throughout the school year. There are times, maybe before a break, when you want to plan some easy things. And that means in other times during the school year, you're going to need to push through. You're going to need to get that clay and that stuff that you need to put a lot of energy into. You're going to need to get that stuff done. So plan for the highs and lows. Know when you tend to really get over the school year. I know for me, it's when the weather gets nice at the end of the school year. I'm really done. So I plan so that my fourth quarter doesn't involve any messy things. So I'm not staying as much after school. During the fourth quarter, I'm doing weaving, I'm doing sewing, and those things are very easy to set up and clean up. And a lot of those projects for my upper grades, it takes them weeks and weeks to finish those things. So I'm not constantly having to come up with something new for them each and every class, which is great. Also, be really realistic with yourself. Just keep lists. There's something called a brain dump where you just really get all the ideas out of your head. And it's great to have some places where you have this. Have a spot where you keep all your lesson ideas or all the things you wish if you had unlimited, planning time you would get done. But realistically, you need to pick out what can you really get done for that day, because otherwise you're going to often leave with the feeling that you didn't get everything done. I know for me, I'm always trying to get ahead and I feel like I'm behind. But that probably is just a myth. I'm probably trying to, in my mind, think that I can do more in a day than is really realistic. So I'm not behind. I just get too many things on my list. So really look and see, what do you need to get done to feel successful the next day or to survive wherever you're at, and break that down. Don't think, oh, hey, and if I have some extra time, and write down 15 more things on that to-do list if it's not something you can realistically get done. One of the big signs that you're burning out is when you're no longer getting excited about things. So make sure that you're always seeking out things that excite you. Maybe for you, it's making your own artwork or learning some new art techniques that you can bring into your classroom. Whatever it is, maybe you want to learn about classroom management and improve that. What can you get into? What can you get excited about so that you enjoy your job more? For me, and this happened actually ironically before COVID, but I really got into making videos to show steps for my students. I no longer really wanted to pull out the document camera and have kids, I can't see, and go through that whole thing. It was just so nice for me to have those pre-recorded demos and have students' attention increased when they were watching the video, and I was able to circulate and move around. It's great for when students are absent. So this is something for a while that just really was of interest to me and I was really excited about. And even though I wasn't all that jazzed about teaching and things like that, I could get behind that and throw my energy into that. And I saw my students enjoying it and kind of circled around to help me to enjoy my job more. Another thing that I did to enjoy my job a little bit more is I have switched schools. Now, this has happened for various reasons, but one of the things I did when I switched schools was I dropped doing an art show, because the way that I did this and the level of art show that I envisioned for myself was just almost unattainable. So I let this go. And instead what I did is, and what I do currently, is that I always have student artwork up throughout my school. So at any given moment in time, if you walk into my school, every student has something up, and I simply just keep rotating through it through the whole school year. So it might be what some people's art show normally looks like. That's literally just every day at my school. For some reason, to me, that is much easier to maintain than one night at the end of the school year that I'm working towards and trying to make things bigger and better every year. It was a way for me to step back, but I'm still getting my students excited and motivated because they're seeing their work on display in the hallway. I think it's really important to display the work from all of the students, and I'm still able to achieve things by doing it in a different way. Make sure that you are advocating for yourself. So if something needs to change for the next school year, when you get into the last quarter of the school, it's a great time to sit down with your admin and talk to them about this. Really say, in coming back and planning and things out for the next school year, here's what I'm really nervous about. One year for me, it was duties. During COVID, I'm sure like many other specialists, we started adding on a lot of duties here, and it got to the point where I was doing something in the morning and the afternoon, and that was expected. So I went to admin and said, that makes me really nervous because there's a lot of things as an art teacher that I'm pouring paint at the last minute before kids come in because I don't want it to dry out over the weekend, or I'm moving things around in the kiln room, I'm taking things off the drying rack. There's just no way, no matter how late I stay sometimes, I can get all of those things done. And once I shared that with them, they said, go ahead and pick. Did I want to do the morning duty or did I want to do the afternoon duty? And the stress was taken away because I'm only now doing one. So don't be afraid to have those conversations. It doesn't hurt to ask. Make sure that you're really proactive with it and you have a solution. You're not just going to them with a problem. Administrators get decision fatigue big time. So if you already have a solution or a way to make things work and you bring that to them, you're very, very likely to get a yes. Be sure that you're looking into getting help. You can get help from older students if your problem is, cleaning and setting things up, and that's something you could have students do before or after school for you for a few minutes. You can look into having some parent volunteers, especially if you teach younger grades. Having some kind of art angel or a helper that comes in is something that I've periodically used. You also may be able to contact high school students. So maybe go through the art teacher at the high school and see if there are students that could come back after school gets out, and they could come and help you with some of the prep tasks, some hanging artwork, or maybe they would enjoy being in the classroom with students. Often those high school students and even upper middle school students are needing hours for service, so you can sign up on that and they're happy to help you out. Something else that I do to kind of maintain my own sanity is I have a ketchup and a pickle day. So this is something that I would look forward to, and I save and I work hard all quarter. And then the last week of the quarter, I have my students catch up on any work that's not finished, and I catch up on all my grades and I finish my grades, and then students get to pick and choose what they do. This really helps me with burnout because throughout the quarter, I know this is coming. I know not only am I going to get that teacher work day, but I'm going to have that whole week where I'm not pulling out different lessons. I'm simply just pulling out things for a few students that they need to finish. And I'm able to use my planning time how I wish, gives me a chance to regroup and start fresh again for the next quarter. I think people are really happiest when things are predictable and they have a routine. So I would set this up for your students in your classroom. In fact, I have a whole video about how I start art and how I do my opening routine with students so it feels really predictable and really safe for them. And it's something that just makes my job easier because I'm able to really go through it without thinking, and it sets them up for learning and success. I also really like to have routines for myself. So think about, what does your morning routine look like? What do you want it to look like at school? What does that afternoon routine look like? What does your planning routine look like? Those are things that if you don't like things, you can change them. So you can hack whatever you want. As an art teacher, we usually have a little bit of flexibility in how we do things. So if you really dislike clay, maybe you spend one whole week doing clay and you just get it out of the way. The following, 2 weeks, you cover up all your tables, you do glaze as centers, it just stays out the whole week and the mess just sits there. And kids go and, to carpet areas or work on the floor when they're done with their glazing. And it's just simplified for you because there's not as much mess, there's not as much cleanup, you're really just doing it kind of once, and then the whole school has got everything done. There's different ways to do things like that. So think about really, what are the pain points? What are the things projects maybe you don't really like doing? How could you do them in different ways? Do some research and check that out. Also share ideas and talk with other teachers. When you're saying, oh, I really don't like printmaking because blah, 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 they might be able to come up with a better way of how, they've gotten around that problem. So it's really important to share, especially what your pain points are, and see what solutions there are. Don't just be miserable in your job year after year doing things the same old way if it's just simply not working for you. Something that I also do just to simplify things is have templates. So I have templates that I use for my slide, and I also kind of have a template for what I use for my class. So I have the same introduction each time, then insert lesson, then insert cleanup, and so on and so forth. So it's very predictable for my students, and in planning it, I know exactly what is needed. I also keep a list for myself if I want to have a new lesson, because it's sometimes really tempting and fun to see a new idea that someone else is doing and get excited about it. But you have to be realistic of what does that mean? So for me, it does mean making an example. I love to make videos for my students with the steps. So it means to me a video as well. It means making an objective poster. I hang objective posters up on my cabinet so that students know what we're doing for that day. So I also need to make an objective poster. I've got to get the materials prepped for that lesson. I like to do some type of a planning sheet. So there's designing that and copying that. And then I like some type of an exit ticket or some measurement of the skills that were done in that lesson. So I have a list of all the things that would be involved if I start a new lesson, so I can go through the checklist and make sure that all of those things are done. So anything that is reoccurring for you, I would have a checklist for. It's something that I do, and I share this in one of my top time-saving tips videos that you'll need to check out, is I use Google Keep. So I use this for my checklist, so things that repeat. So every morning there are things that I do, and then there are things that I need to do that I plug in there. But just doing that makes me a lot happier because I know what I'm gonna get done. And what doesn't get done, I'm able to move and do that in the afternoon, do that in my planning time. I can see it all clearly laid out, and I'm not having stress and forgetting about things, because for me, that's what leads to a lot of burnout when things are disorganized. I love to look on TPT. There is no shame in borrowing things that other teachers have already created. You don't always need to reinvent the wheel, so be kind with yourself about that. And definitely remember that all teachers have these highs and lows. So there are people in your building that might be feeling low. And when you're on a high, this is when you can pick those teachers up. And that's how teacher communities can work together. So when you are at a point where you can share and you can give back to others, that's when you need to do that. Also, something that I like to do to pick myself up when I'm feeling down is do nice things for others. This has worked out really well for me lately in the classroom when I have a student where maybe I've recently contacted home, and then I notice things are getting better for them. and I ask them, would you like me to send home a good note? And I will text their families, email their families a note kind of updating, hey, you know, things are really turning around and today was a great day. And I've noticed that when I take the time to do that, the students are extremely appreciative, and that good behavior just takes off and becomes the new normal. It also feels really good to do things for other teachers. Even, you know, if you're putting a little anonymous note in their mailbox, kind of cheering them on, or giving a little gift to somebody, just something, or, you know, even celebrating an upcoming holiday, giving a little gift to people. I love to give small tokens of appreciation to the IAs that come and work with students in my classroom. I have some for kindergarten and some for special education, and just letting them know that I see them and that I appreciate them is a way to kind of build myself back up and feel good and enjoy my job a little bit more. I hope you got some great ideas from this video. Make sure that you pick something and set it as your goal and start to implement it, and see if you can try to avoid that teacher burnout and try to stay off that roller coaster as much as possible.